I got to go get a Christmas tree. Go get it before I head to the airport.
Yep.
Have to roll down and get that done in the morning.
The family duties.
Yeah.
Yep. Good priority set. Well, let's hop over here into a good kind of spot.
How are you? Good.
Get some nice trees or something over
Yeah.
here. We try and mix it up. We're going
Good.
to people inside the dungeon, but it's nice to get out and about sometimes.
Go hang out with some fraternity or sorority people running around.
Right. A lot of interesting traffic on this street. Foot traffic and bike traffic and people traffic.
Who has this house?
This is us.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. This is us, actually.
What do you? Is there anything in it?
Just storage right now.
Oh, really?
I know. We could, like, they
Should turn that into something cool.
They really should. Yeah, we own this too.
The
kind of interesting.
KXAM bar.
Hey, I'm in. I'll go.
Yeah.
Are you good? Let's just try and not show the KXAM stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, was that? Let's just try and not show the KXAM stuff in case this airs on one of our.
You want to go? Which? Where do you want me? You want me here?
Yeah, right about there is good.
All right.
Is that good for you?
This is great.
Okay.
Am I looking at camera or you?
You can just look at me.
Okay.
And then I'll turn and kind of cheat this way so we can just chat.
All right.
Ready? All right. Okay. 3, 2. Here now with Congressman Chip Roy. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Let's run through some of the latest and greatest. Let's first talk impeachment. So last time we talked with you, you said that you wanted to hear the facts out and you wanted to kind of see this process through. Are you convinced with what you've heard so far to this point?
Well, I still haven't seen the articles of impeachment. I'd like to see those this week. They're going to Judiciary Committee on Wednesday. I think they're going to call some witnesses, a few constitutional scholars or something along those lines. And so I'll listen to what they have to say at the Judiciary Committee, see what articles of impeachment they put out, and then I'll have something to say publicly about it, but because I think it's important to look at it and see what they put forward in the articles of impeachment. But look, it's a political process. The Democrats have been trying to get rid of the president for a long time. They've been seeking to do this. I think we've got a fairly weak showing so far in terms of what I've seen from witnesses that have come forward. But I'm going to wait for a little bit longer to see the articles of impeachment before I come out fully.
Homelessness. You've been real vocal about homeless issues, particularly in Austin and in this area. What is your assessment of kind of how the city and the state have responded to some of these issues with people experiencing homelessness?
Well, first of all, this is coming off the Thanksgiving weekend, heading into the Christmas holidays. We want to make sure that anybody who doesn't have a home has a chance to have a home. I think you best do that by getting the prices of housing down, make housing affordable, but make sure that we've got the kinds of places set up where people can go help people. We've got so many generous people in Austin, Texas who want to help those in need. Free that up, let that happen. But creating tent cities harms the city, harms those involved. And I don't think there's many people in the city who believe it's a good idea other than the city council. I've basically run into nobody when I talk to people in the city who think that's a good plan. I think the state and the governor has done a great job trying to step in to deal with the problem, producing the land. I think it was like 5 acres or whatever it is up off 183. And I think that's a good step. We ought to continue to figure out how to solve the problem, but you do it best by driving down the prices and encouraging the ability for the nonprofit sector and the caring people of this community to step forward.
I want to ask you about border security. It's something that you have talked a lot about. Why is it important for you to keep the spotlight on border issues right now?
Well, at the moment right now where people say, well, gosh, the numbers are down a little bit from where they were earlier this year, the numbers are still pretty high. And we should remember that. And we should remember that cartels have operational control of our border. And that's something that we, the greatest and freest nation in the world, should never allow. They're abusing migrants on the journey coming here, and that's unconscionable that we let that happen. So I introduced legislation calling on our State Department to designate cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. I think we should treat them as those. They're moving dangerous fentanyl, dangerous heroin, dangerous cocaine. They're targeting Americans in Mexico and Americans in the Rio Grande Valley. They're targeting Mexican police. They're targeting Mexican politicians. They've killed 200,000 some odd people over the last decade. It's completely ridiculous that we're allowing that to happen in our backyard. So we should deal with it immediately, and guess what? Create a vibrant Western Hemisphere to compete against China. Have free flow of goods and services. And you know what helped do that? If Democrats would stop playing politics and would pass the USMCA instead of sitting on their laurels and not doing their job.
Something that we've seen a lot of in terms of the polling of constituents is that Republicans tend to prioritize the immigration and the border security, and Democrats prioritizing education and healthcare. Of course, there's some spillover, but your district is split among Republicans and Democrats. How do you balance those priorities, and what are you hearing from constituents right now?
Well, the whole nation has a lot of Democrats and Republicans, whether it's California or Texas or Texas 21. We've got a very conservative district here who believes in personal responsibility and self-reliance and creating wealth and opportunity. 1,000 people a day move to Texas, and a big chunk of those are moving to Central Texas. We're concerned about all the issues. We're concerned about healthcare. We're concerned about education. I happen to believe education is better accomplished right here in Austin, Texas, right here in Texas. I believe that, look, we put a man on the moon in 1969, a full decade before the Department of Education was ever created in 1979. We're fully capable of doing that here in Texas with the 10th biggest economy in the world. We can take care of that problem. Border security is a fundamentally federal issue. It's their job to deal with immigration and border security. So we should do it, and we should do it in a way that creates the free flow of goods and services across the border that benefits Texas 21 and the state of Texas and the whole country, but does so without worrying about dangerous terrorists coming across the border or cartels harming the people in this community, San Antonio, or throughout the state of Texas. We can do all of those things. We just need to do our job instead of playing politics in D.C. where the swamp keeps being the swamp.
We've seen some IRS data that's indicating that Americans have cut charitable deductions, by like several $1 billion. Any thoughts on what might be impacting folks' charitable giving? I mean, is it like stock market uncertainty maybe, or the tax code overhaul from last year or the year before? Any thoughts on what might be attributing to that?
I haven't studied the current state of charitable giving and where it stands historically. I know I did some research on this when I was in school about the sort of looking at charitable giving over time. And what you see is a strong correlation to people of faith who tithe and give a standard amount of giving over time. And I think what you see is we saw $100 million being donated by, I think, Bezos the last week. You see a decent amount of charity that's flowing in the state of Texas on a regular basis in the wake of Hurricane Harvey and so forth. Mattress Mac opened up his stores and let people sleep in his rooms. And look, there is no end to what the good-hearted people of Texas and around the country will do when they're given the opportunity. I think if you want to see charitable giving go up, stop putting so many demands and constraints on the American people. Free them up to do what they do best. Create jobs, create opportunity, and use their hearts and their dollars to go help others.
Well, we got you here. Really want to ask you about Rick Perry as well.
Sure.
Somebody who you worked for and in theory is responsible for some of your political career at some level. What can you tell us about some of your time with him and tell us about that experience and kind of what impact he's left on you?
I wouldn't saddle the great governor with whatever it is I'm up to, but no, I do owe him a great deal, and was happy to go down to the floor of the House of Representatives with some of my colleagues to praise him and his service. He means a great deal to me, and he's meant a great deal to the people of Texas. When I worked for him, I was battling cancer. He prayed for me, he looked out for my family. He was constantly calling and reaching out. I mean, from a debate stage, he was calling out and reaching out to me, and I think the world of him, and I don't think he's finished yet with his public service. But this state is better off for his service. This nation is better off for his service, both as a veteran and as now the Secretary of Energy. We are leading the world in energy production. What occurred in the Middle East recently would have 20, 30 years ago would have caused massive increases in gas prices, harmed Americans, harmed Texans. We didn't even see a blip on the radar screen because we're producing natural gas and gasoline, oil right here in Texas, right here in this nation, and leading the world.
Can you sum up the year for us and give us a taste of what 2020 looks like for you?
Well, when people ask me to sum up the last year, my first year in Congress, I'd say a complete waste of time and wasted energy. The American people deserve a Congress that's working for them, working to reduce the price of health care, working to secure the border, working to balance the budget. We're going to make sure our men and women in uniform have a clear mission, the tools to carry it out, and the care when they get home. And they've been getting none of that. They've been getting wasted time. Where Democrats are pushing a Green New Deal, which would bankrupt American families, cause Texans' energy prices to go up, electricity bills to go up. They're driving up the cost of health care rather than saving it. Now talking about Medicare for all, which would cost $52 trillion and push a lot of people who rely on Medicare off. And they've spent a lot of time trying to make sure that boys can go play in girls' track meets. I mean, and seriously, this is legislation that the House of Representatives Democrats have been pushing forward. This is not what the American people want to see. They want to see us do our job. And I think we ought to do that. That's why I've tried to introduce legislation that's common sense, like putting a debt clock in the Appropriations and Budget Committee's room to remind people we should balance our budget, forcing votes on the floor of the House of Representatives to stop $20 billion from getting jammed through by unanimous consent, or forcing votes on the floor of the House of Representatives to demand that we actually secure our border and make sure those kids who are being bottlenecked at the border had a place to go. while Democrats were saying there was no crisis, while Democrats were saying it was a fake crisis, a manufactured crisis. There were kids in facilities who were being harmed while they were playing politics on the floor of the House of Representatives. And frankly, it's one of the reasons why I'm announcing for re-election today, is because my opponent would jump right in bed with those Democrats who would say there's no crisis at the border, who would keep spending money, who would prioritize things that are out of step with Texans. And I'm happy to jump back in and can try to continue what I've done over the last year.
You touched on it, but I want to ask you again.
Sure.
What would you're filing for re-election.
Yeah.
What sets you apart from your opponent and from the rest of the pack should other people jump in?
I got into this race 2 years ago next week to run for Texas 21 because I looked at my 10-year-old and 8-year-old kids, they were 9 and 7 at the time, and I wanted to save this republic for them. I believe we've got the opportunity of a lifetime to have the greatest future for our kids and grandkids if we actually go execute on it. But $23 trillion of debt and $100 million of debt an hour isn't going to do it. Having wide open borders where people can harm us and it isn't doing any good for us or migrants is not going to do it. Having healthcare prices that are now consuming more and more of Americans' budgets isn't going to do it. And it's Obamacare that created that problem. It's the lack of seriousness of border security that House Democrats refuse to actually do their job. It's causing that problem. And these are solvable problems that I'm willing to and wanting to get back in the mix and run for re-election to go solve. And so that's my plan.
Congressman Chip Roy, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Good.